A business plan is a map for you to be able to start thinking about how your business can proceed. And it's useful in a lot of different ways. And for one thing, people talk about pitches and pitch decks, and the idea that you're going to present your business to try and get funding or to try and tell people about what your business is. It's a plan for yourself. It's a plan for people that you're working with. It's a plan for people that you're trying to encourage to get involved in the business, whether financially or in other types of ways. And so when you think about it, what does that really mean? It's interesting. I heard a talk by a professor of entrepreneurship at Stanford when I was a member of the Palo Alto University Rotary Club. And so funny because one of my hobbies is improv. And in improv, they tell you that in order to tell a story, that all stories have the same format. It says, once upon a time, and every day, something happened, and because of that, and because of that, and because of that, until finally, and then the moral of the story is. And so she got up and she said, I'm trying to convince entrepreneurs that to realize that what they're doing is they need to tell a story. And she said that exact thing. And there I was sitting in the crowd. And as soon as she started saying it, I recognized it. And I went along with her word for word. And the people that were sitting around me were like, oh, wow, how does he know this? But when you think about it, what I just said about being able to get people to want to be involved with what you're doing, you have to have a good story. And part of a good story is really, you can start at the end. The moral of the story is when you tell stories, a lot of times the stories have a purpose. You're trying to convince somebody of something or teach somebody something. Oftentimes when you tell a story, there's a purpose to the story that you're trying to tell. And so strangely, when you think of a business plan, you think of marketing and the financials, and those are part of it, and I'll get to that. But the big picture for a story is getting people involved in your vision, in what you're trying to make. Because if you're not trying to create something and you're not trying to make the world a different and better place, you're not going to be able to sustain what you're doing. You're not going to be able to get people to sign up for what you're doing. I mean, a lot of people are kind of looking for something to be engaged with and to feel like their life is meaningful. And a good entrepreneur does that. They draw people into something that's bigger than themselves. A lot of people know that Steve Jobs was sort of an asshole. I mean, that's famous. But interestingly enough, I'm good friends with Steve Jobs' roommate at Reed, who was the person who went to India with Steve Jobs, and Dan Kotke, and traveled around with Steve Jobs for 2 years. And then when they first built the Apple I computer, they built it in Steve Jobs' garage, and it was Wozniak, Dan Kotke, and Steve Jobs' sister that put these together. And he lived in a house with Steve for several years. And interestingly enough, all the books in Steve's room were spiritual books. They were about Buddhism and things like that. So Steve, underlying what we know about him outside, actually had a great deal of drive and purpose in his life. So if he was just an asshole, people wouldn't have been willing to go along with him. But he wasn't. He actually had something meaningful. He was creating something. He made something. And so underlying what the vision for Apple was I think it's bicycles for the mind. It's the idea that you're being able to power yourself to become better and become amplify yourself in an incredible way where you use a small amount of energy to do a lot. So a core to a business plan is to be able to really understand who you are and what you're trying to do. But then another important aspect of the business plan is to understand who you're doing it for. What problems are you trying to solve? Oftentimes I see people that are engineers who, what they're doing is they're making the coolest thing that they can possibly make. And they'll come up to me and they'll say, wow, I made this really, really, really cool thing. And like, I go, well, okay, like, what am I going to do with it? And they go, well, that doesn't really matter. It's really cool. And you have to ask the question, like, what problem is it solving? Who is it? Who are you solving it for? And when you get an answer to that question, your market just falls out in front of you. I mean, because if you know who you're solving the problem for, you know who you're solving the problem for, you know who your market is. And once you can figure out who your market is, you can figure out how big your market is. You can figure out how much money your market has available to pay you for it. And then you can figure out how much it costs to make, and you can answer the question, can I make this for cheap enough or for a price that's reasonable enough that I can sell it to the market and actually make money? Because ultimately, if you're not making money with a business, you can't have a business. An old joke, which is, they say, well, I lose money on every sale, but I make it up on volume. So that doesn't work, as you can guess. So when you're developing a business plan, part of it is to understand what it is that you're trying to do. Part of it's trying to figure out whether you can make what you're doing and sell it for an amount that's reasonable, develop your market. And the last part of it that I'm going to talk about is developing the team that you need to be able to do it. Because you don't know what you don't know. And when you're being an entrepreneur, you're going to discover that you run into problems that you don't even know what to call them. You don't even know what the problem. You don't even know that a problem like that existed. You'll just be baffled. And the way to solve those problems is to have good coaches, to have good people that are around you, to be able to help you solve those problems. And the way to get that goes back to the idea of a story, of a vision, of some sort of a way that you're going to be able to attract the people that you're going to need. And of course, the financing part of it comes into that piece too, because people that are investing in your company, they're the people that are going to be able to coach you. They're the people that are going to be able to hold your hand and help you get the resources that you know. They're not just people that invest in you, aren't just giving you money. The people that are investing in you are going to be able to, they've seen those problems before. They know what they're called. And when I've seen pitches, I've seen so many, I've seen 1,000, I've read 1,000 business plans. What's attractive to investors and is attractive to people is when you see somebody that has a feeling, they see a problem that they want solved, and it means something to them. They feel like they can make a difference in the world by doing it, and they understand how they can make money doing it. And because of that, people want to help them. And that's what a real business plan, a good business plan, works out to be. And I'd like to help you understand how to put that together. So that's what I'm going to be doing.